Well, I've remade my essays on the original Life is Strange and Before the Storm, so given that there's only 2 games left to cover, I figure I should save the newest for last and have the remake essays be in chronological order. Which means, for the first time in a long time, I'm taking another look at Life is Strange 2. Didn't like it all that much the first time around. So let's take another look and see if my original assessment still stands, or if I'm not being the infallible critic you all know me to be. I mean, could this game truly have warranted the language I used in the intro of the original essay? I opened that one by saying, quote, "This sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before," and a much longer quote here. Life is Strange 2 is absolutely abysmal, from the characters being terrible, to the story starting off strong then falling apart, to the soundtrack using songs that aren't earned or deserved in the moments they're played in, and finally the secondary main character himself. Everything sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before. Glazed Ham, a Leg of Glazed Ham, talks about Life is Strange 2, page 1, because I need to cite my sources. Anyway, all of that seems really harsh and undeserved, but who knows? Not me. But what I do know is what we're going to talk about today. The story, the characters, the music, the relationship between Sean and Danny Boy, where this game ranks overall in the franchise, and some other fun things depending on how I'm feeling. Pack your bags, grab your coats, and take as much money as you can carry, because we're off on a cross-country journey to Mexico. We open up with some dash cam footage of a cop car outside some house in Washington before we cut to a school bus dropping off 2 dweebs in a quiet neighborhood who are talking about some party tonight. Woo! Sean is our protagonist, and his biggest concern is trying to score with this girl named Jen, a name I can only associate with Dawson's Creek, because I am what is left of a broken man. Anyways, Sean and his best friend Lila walk and talk, get accosted by Sean's asshole neighbor. They sit on the porch, Lila grabs a ciggy and to smoke and offers you one, and this is our first choice. To smoke or not to smoke. I said no because, quote, track stars aren't supposed to smoke, and Lila will remember this. Lila gives us a list of shit to pack for the party, and it's all the usual shit you'd expect, and it's a nice scene that really makes these two feel like some really good friends. Lila talks about how sometimes she gives herself the creeps, and you know what? Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me too, and I worry about what comes after graduation, and these dorks are gonna be besties forever. Eventually, Lila's gotta skedaddle, so we're off to pack up for the party. Enter the house and see Dad and Danny Boy fighting over the last Choco Crisp. It's up to Sean to decide who deserves it more, your little shit brother or dear old Dad. You can give it to either of them or take it for yourself, but I'd say Dad deserves it more. I give it to Dad, but him being a good father, as always, gives it to the little shit anyways. He's off to go work, Danny is off to his room, and we're off to gather supplies. Explore the house for some food, drinks, a blanket, condoms, all that stuff that you'll need for tonight. But that leaves the money. You gotta go ask Dad for some, and if you're a good, honest boy, Dad'll give you a bunch of cash. But before that, we get some honestly really good dialogue between Sean and Dad, and I'm astonished how much character they managed to pack in such a short amount of time. It's really charming, but it's nearing the time to go. So pack your bag, grab your stuff, surf the web, call Lila, and realize all good things must come to an end when Danny Boy goes outside with some Halloween stuff and pisses off the racist neighbor. Everything goes sideways. The cops arrive after Danny got fake blood on the neighbor and Sean decked him so hard he falls. The cop comes out ready to shoot because these 2 Hispanic boys just attacked a white guy, so I guess it's on sight rather than being a rational person. Then Dad comes out, the cops shoot and kill Dad, and Danny Boy accidentally activates his telekinetic blast power to flip the cop car, thus killing the cop in the process, and temporarily knocking out Sean. So that sure was an opening, huh? I mean, I get that this game is a political commentary and all, but what the hell was this? Anyway, Sean grabs Danny Boy and they book it into the woods and far away from Seattle. It's time to run and never look back, because this shit can't be explained away. Also, your dad is ultra dead, so there's that. And this is where the real game begins. 2 days after the incident, the boys walk a lonely road, and it sure ain't one they know. Danny Boy is the typical little shit, whining about where they're going and being tired and shit. And Sean kinda yells at him, but realizes he's still just his brother, but then he realizes he's gotta motivate the little shit to carry on. The little shit keeps asking where Dad is, and it's because he doesn't know that Dad is dead yet. They talk about distance and stuff, and given that they're heading south, 200 miles would only put them in Oregon if they started in Seattle, or close enough to Seattle anyway. But this motivates the boys to keep on going, and they walk and talk and have some fun as brothers do. It's nice to see. Then we get a title card! Woo! Anyway, the boys keep on walking until they hit a good spot to stop for the night. It's some pseudo cave along a river, the perfect place to camp out. Hike down to the riverbank, engage in some brotherly activities like scouting and foraging and helping your little brother get down from high places without hurting himself. Then it's time to make camp. Gather some firewood, check your resources, and set up shop for the night. Make sure not to check your phone cause it'll die, and all that good stuff. Teach the boy how to skip stones, make him feel at ease, have some chips for dinner, and tell some stories. And continue to contemplate how to broach the elephant in the room, that being Dad's death. Danny slept through the night well, and we're off to continue the trek. Eventually we hit a gas station after several days, I guess. I think one of my personal problems with this game is that I don't have an exact sense of how much time has passed, but it is what it is. We enter the gas station, buy some food with our limited money, meet Brody, the best side character here, and feast on the limited amount of goods we have. Then we get accosted by some racist creep thrown in the back room and all that fun stuff that reminds you this game was set in 2016. Sean and the little shit have a prison break, then the psychic powers go off when that asshole who locked us up threatens us again. We have to make a run for it, so try and use the downtime to grab some gear, but realize that the racist is still conscious, so get the hell out of Dodge. Thankfully, we got friends in weird places because Brody offers us a ride, and we get a lot of distance covered in very little time. On the road again, Brody tells us all about the road, his adventures on it, and all that good stuff. Sean discovers Danny Boy took a stray dog from the gas station with him, and he names her Mushroom. Anyways, the gang talks about all sorts of stuff. The little shit falls asleep, Sean and Brody talk about real shit, TM. Take a piss break, and guess what we see off in the distance? A familiar little lighthouse up on a melancholy hill looking over a small town of little worth to the uninitiated, but is the most important location in the whole series, Arcadia Bay. Sean and Brody are blissfully unaware of the tragedy and the mystique that surrounds this town out on the Oregon coast. As they talk, we get a faint little blast from the past with a simple little soundtrack song, Max and Chloe, a major theme from the original game. Makes me wish I was playing that game instead, but there's no time to look back. After some introspective conversation, we hit the end of the line at a motel. Brody buys us a room for the night, he gives us some cash, a new backpack, and a bandana for Mushroom. We thank him for everything he's done for us and go our separate ways. In the motel room, get Danny to bathe, call Lila so she doesn't get psych warded. That's the knowledge acquired from experimentation and multiple playthroughs. And eventually, through the TV, Danny uncovers what happened before we could figure out the best way to broach the topic. Danny's powers go nuts, but they work things out, promising not to hide things from each other, and we fade to black. There's the usual shots around town that we all know and love. Throw a stat screen up for good measure and a teaser for episode 2, and we're off to the races. Wahoo! Well, like my father's come to pass, 2 months have gone so fast. Wake me up when December ends. I'm sorry about all the singing bits throughout all of this little quadrilogy here. I'm having a little too much fun with it, if you can't tell. Anyway, the opening here highlights a fundamental problem with the game's design, and it's that every episode after the first one opens with a recap section. This is because this game released episodically over the course of like 2 years, and so it makes sense why it'd be there, but now if you're playing the game like any normal person would play an LIS game, it's infuriating that you can't skip the recap of what you just saw. Anyways, the episode actually starts in December, hence the whole Green Day singing joke, which is ironic because despite Wake Me Up When September Ends being one of their most popular songs, it's easily one of the weakest tracks on American Idiot, right up there with Boulevard of Broken Dreams, which is a hill I'll die on, and a hill I will be crucified on for saying such blasphemous things. Anyway, I'm sorry, where was I? The boys? Oh yeah, they're in the woods living in an old abandoned house and they're trying to train Danny's powers, so do some dumb shit, realize that the little shit's gonna get pneumonia out here, and head back to the shack. Make a fire to help Danny warm up, and realize that he's gotta get out of the woods really soon. They go over some rules about why the little shit needs to not talk about his powers, use them in public, and all that stuff, which establishes drama that is yet to come. After some touching dialogue about powers and not being responsible for what happened to Dad, it's time to make some food, play some games, then go to bed, because tomorrow we head to find the grandparents. By the way, the little shit is a worthless cheating that deserves to have his skull smashed against the cobbles because he had to resort to cheating in order to win, since his fragile little ego couldn't handle me decimating him in the game. So I did what any reasonable person would do and reloaded checkpoint until I beat the shit out of him without him being able to cheat. We don't take kindly to cheaters around these parts, so consider the timeline where I won without any shenanigans the main timeline, because all of the others ended as a result of me ripping that little shithead's skull in half. God, that was dark. I'm sorry for my outburst there, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from here. Well, wake up in the morning, pack our bags, and head off into the great unknown. And oh boy, we start with Mushroom getting eaten by a mountain lion. Talk the little shit out of killing it because that's immoral, and something about crushing a wild animal to death with psychic powers just doesn't sound right. That being said, this is a lesson in why you always keep an eye on your pets. Bury the poor dog, hold a funeral, and keep on trucking until you hit Grandpa's. You get there at about 10 p.m., and thankfully they're still awake. We just walked 30 miles to get here, so we're finally at a safe place. They come down and they know about what happened. But since we're family, they bring us in. Daniel gets his sickness treated, and Sean explains what the hell's been going on lately. But not after an extended period of doing absolutely nothing but wasting my goddamn time while sitting at the table. Eventually I can talk about what our plan is, and we're going to Mexico! Woo! But first, we're gonna stay in town for a while for Christmas. For the first time in a while, we can just relax for a while, and as long as we follow the rules. We go to bed, and as the days go by, the little shit makes a new friend, and we go Christmas shopping with Captain Alex, who's Danny's new friend. Sean meets some weirdo named Finn, and more importantly, a girl named Cassidy. This crew of motley fools is gonna be important next episode, but for now, just know she's a cool girl. After talking with them, finding a Christmas gift for Danny, and finding a Christmas tree, head on home. Sean takes advantage of the grandparents being out to call Lila and make sure she's doing just fine while we're off on our adventure. The little shit, on the other hand, has plans for the free time, and it's to break into what was Mom's old room. See, Mom left as soon as Danny Boy was born, and so he never got to know her, and this is the only way for him to learn. The grandparents come home, Grandma comes upstairs, we're fighting, then a bookshelf downstairs falls on Grandpa. Have the little shit use his powers on the bookshelf to have Grandpa come out uninjured, and have Grandma questioning God. But now the police are here. Grandma distracts them long enough for us to escape into the woods, but we hit a little snare when the police spot us. As they drive towards us, Captain Alex, who has no powers by the way, jumps in front of the cops to try and save us, and he gets hit by a car. I gave Danny Boy an early Christmas gift, and all was not well. The little shitlord blames me for what happened, despite the fact he could have taken action himself, but he has to bitch at and hate me somehow, so we ball. That said, we're back on the Boulevard of Broken Dreams, so wake me up when December ends. Well, I guess it's been time for me to wake up for a while now, since it's February now. We're in California now with a whole new family of misfit losers, including Finn and Cassidy, a Swedish couple, and some other dorks that make up our found family of dumbasses. But now, it's time to break some bad on an illegal weed farm that we work at for the summer. It's morning, Sean ain't got shit to do, so enjoy the dream sequence that starts with On Melancholy Hill by Gorillaz from their hit 2010 masterpiece, Plastic Beach, which is one of my favorite albums ever, but used here in kind of a lame way. Like, not even used in an appropriate context that'd make it hit harder. It's just Sean laying in bed listening to music. This flashback to 3 months before the incident featured Sean and Danny fighting, Dad breaking up the fight, them making up, and all that good stuff. Or would be good stuff if I cared. Wake up, and we're definitely running late. I mean, even Danny Boy got up before us. Meet some of the team, a conspiracy theorist named Penny, who needs to lay off the drugs forever because they make no sense. And Ingrid, one of the two Swedes, while you drink some coffee. Then you're off to find the little shit. do some knife throwing, and once again get reminded why this little cheating bastard deserves to die a violent death, because I would have hit multiple bullseyes if he hadn't decided to use his powers to screw me over. Anyways, Danny Boy really likes Finn, so much so that he has to make my knife miss with his stupid bullshit powers, and God, I just want to throw a knife into his stupid skull because he deserves it for being a cheating bitch. It's not even, like, funny, man. Like, it's not even, like, funny cheating. It's just being an asshole. Sean pulls the little shithead aside and chastises him for using his powers wrong, but then the asshole force shoves Sean a little too hard, and God bless Sean for having better self-control than I would, because I would have sent Daniel back to Dad for that little stunt. Danny Boy is pissed because Sean finally has friends his age that he'd rather hang out with, because it's like the first time Sean has had friends in like 4 months. Sean promises they'll do some training so the little shit will calm the hell down, and he's all like, quote, "We should find Mom," and, quote, "We've been here forever." And when I shut him down once he gets all, "Why do I never get a choice?" And if I had the power, I'd tell him, "You do have a choice, and it's shutting the hell up and letting me do my job." Anyhows, we gotta work, so let's go on out of here. The school bus ride is fun, to work. Meet the rest of our ragtag team of idiots, shoot the shit about Big Joe, the bus driver slash security guard slash wannabe Mike Ehrmantraut of this game. All that stuff that I don't care about because there's only 2 good characters here. Get off the bus and meet our boss, Diet Gus Fring. He complains about Danny, threatens to fire us the next time that little shit slips up, and you can see where this is going. Head back to camp, talk with Finn, then do some camp shit! Draw some stuff, Cassidy. Seduce the girl a bit, have Danny Boy help you with the chores after you help him with his, train his powers by the lake, and all in all seems good until Sean gets fed up with the little shit's emo behavior, and Sean gets pissy! Sean asks if he's been a bad older brother because he's been spending time with the others more than Danny, and Danny specifically brings up Cassidy as though she's the problem. Cassidy is super chill. I don't know why this little shithead is filled with the rage of 1,000 incels, but that's something for a different day. Danny gets pissy! And he lifts some massive ass log for no reason, says he's not a kid anymore, and storms off like a little brat. I hate this piece of shit child. Anyways, campfire time. Cassidy sings for the group, most of them are blazing and drinking, then it's time for a group trauma dump sesh. While Danny Boy is here, I choose to be a good role model and didn't partake of the substances, and as such, when he heads off to bed, I follow because I want to try and patch up the damages with the little bastard. As much as I hate him, he's still my brother or something like that. We talk, Danny Boy feels better, and our relationship is less strained now. It's a nice scene of character stuff, primarily for Sean. Then it's the next day. Sean wakes up late and uses his Shrek Star powers to book it to the bus with just a really weird-ass needle drop of DANCE by Justice. I'm gonna say it. An electronic dance song has no place in this franchise, yet here it is. What a weird move. Anyway, we get some fun character and camera stuff, and then it's time to go to work. This montage is so strange, but I'd be lying if it wasn't really fun. Like, the camera is whipping around all over the place. We're getting weird angles and sweeping transitions. Like, it's so much more fun than any other segment in the game, and it's so out of place stylistically. But the fun comes to an end, and it's payday. The adults are off to collect their cash. Daniel gets pissed that he has to stay outside. He promises not to do anything, but you bet your ass he's gonna get Sean and him fired. Danny gets brought into the house by Big Joe because Big Joe caught him inside the house, and Diet Gus Fring has to decide what to do here. So he revokes pay for all of us, fires Sean and the little shithead, and leaves. Big Joe's gonna beat the shit out of Danny, so he uses his powers to save himself by throwing an ashtray at Joe's head, which leads to me getting my shit rocked because I step forward like a hero. I'll take that beat down if it means my worthless little shithead brother can get out unharmed. That night, Sean and Daniel explained the powers to everyone who was in the room. We talk plans and shit, but who cares? It's party time! We're gonna enjoy our last night here, G-dammit. But Finn has a plan, John, and by the nines, is it a terrible one. He wants to use Danny to rob Diet Gus Fring, so Cassidy rightfully chews him out. Sean and her talk a little more, and it's time to acquire the tattoo, thus allowing him to finally start speccing into the 3 skill trees of stealth, combat, and exploration, and I'm lying directly to your face. He is going to get a tattoo though, just not the Far Cry 3 skill tree tattoo. Now is time for talking to everyone, and more importantly, deciding which romance path you're going to go down, Finn or Cassidy. See, this game has a funny little thing where the romance options are directly tied to the route you're playing. So if you're going for high morality, you're forced into picking Cassidy. But if you want to be gay, then you gotta be prepared to do some crimes and have low morality. What a weird choice, man. Anyway, talk with Finn first, tell him to stay the hell away from the little shit because his plan is so stupid and irresponsible since it screws over not just us, but every other person in the group, since there's no way they'd ever be allowed to work there again, on account of them probably getting executed and all that. Anyways, I'm ignoring everything and I'm going straight to Cassidy, because she's the best character here. She's gonna give me a tattoo, and I choose a wolf tattoo, which she draws very poorly, kinda like the background of this video that I did. That was me, if you can't tell. Anyway, the two talk about their goals, and they both want to leave, and so Sean extends the offer of come with us because he has no style or grace. She's flattered by the offer but declines. Damn it! But she does say that they'll meet again, even if this is their last night here, so there's still hope. Do not go silently into that good night! Rage! Rage against the storm! Fight until there's nothing left to fight for! Do not go softly into that good night! God, where was I? Oh yeah, tattoo time! Sean experiences the pains of getting a tattoo, flirts hard, and we're straight ballin'. She says we're gonna go swim, or she's gonna go swimming, kisses Sean, and wow, I straight miswrote that whole thing. Let's retake that one. Yeah, this is all staying in, by the way. Thanks editing me. I hate you as much as you hate me. Yeah. Anyway, she says she's gonna go swimming, she kisses Sean on the cheek, and invites him to go with her. I don't care if Finn is gonna steal Danny Boy to go rob Diet Gus Fring. I've got a date with Destiny, or Cassidy. Same thing, really. She strips down and jumps in, and I'm once again reminded this is the only game in the series with nudity. Sean strips down and jumps into the cold, cold water. They talk about what he's gonna do about Finn's dumbass plan, how Sean is a heartbreaker and everyone loves him. Sean seizes the moment and says he likes her, and she gets close to him, he gets super flustered, they kiss, and it's really sweet. She then says, let's get out of here, and they head back to her place to have the best 15.5 seconds of Sean's life. As much as I hate that joke, this game does something really unique here and plays off this idea, because afterwards, Sean is a bit mopey and about not performing well his first time, and instead of it being a joke, Cassidy says it's alright and not to worry about a poor first performance because he'll get better with time and practice. The latter of which she offers more of later that night. And it's really sweet, like she's really caring and you love to see it. But all good things must come to an end, because Danny and Finn are nowhere to be found. Oh no. We gotta rush fast to stop these two buffoons, but if I say hadn't gone at all, what would have happened? You know, if Sean just said, nah, I'm gonna have a good time tonight and just stay with Cassidy all night before we don't see each other for a real long time. But alas, Sean and Cassidy team up to save these dipshits from themselves and Diet Gus Fring. They steal a truck without alerting Joe, so thankfully this confrontation will go just a little smoother. Arrive on the scene, and thankfully Finn and the little shit haven't broken in yet, so you can make a choice. Join their plot or tell them off. I told him off, and the little shit goes off on some incel-fueled rant and decides that we're gonna try and steal that money regardless. This is entirely his fault, and as such, I don't feel too bad about what happens next. Diet Gus Fring wakes up, and he's pissed. Try to talk your way out of this situation you didn't want to be in, realize words will get you nowhere against a man with a gun, and have Danny Boy neutralize the threat before this can become a problem. He gets hit with a stray bullet and goes apeshit, killing Gus and injuring everybody else to varying degrees. Regardless, Sean falls unconscious, and the episode ends. Wake up to find it's been several months and you're on your own. In a nearby hospital rests punished Sean, who is now missing an eye and has to adjust to the new vision loss. I passed the eye exams with flying colors, in case you were wondering, and then I get interrogated by some FBI agent trying to grill me about the Seattle incident, among other things. Cooperate some, but not fully, and wait for this lady to leave the room so you can examine the surroundings better. In particular, your nurse brought you back a very special gift, your sketchbook. Also, there's some letters and shit from some of the commune buddies, and of course a letter from Cassidy where she promises that one day she'll find you down in Mexico, so we've got a goal in mind. Anyways, it's time to do a little more digging because we have no clue where the little shithead is. Lo and behold, Jacob, one of the commune dweebs who barely spoke to us, found Danny Boy and took him to safety in the place he was from, otherwise known as Morrilton State Soda. Wait a minute, that's where the best adult animated show ever took place. We're not heading there. We're actually heading to this Waco, Texas sounding ass place called Haven Point, Nevada, because that's apparently where Danny is. With a location known and the FBI hot on my ass, tonight's the night to make some shit happen. Cue up The Man Who Sold the World by your favorite and mine, David Bowie, because it's time to stealthily escape this hospital a la solid/solidus/naked/liquid/venom/whatever snake. And just like those games I referenced, you have multiple options for how you can approach your grand escape. Go loud, silent assassin, suit only, get your nurse to help. There's a lot of ways to escape. I chose the stealthiest way. I'm still as illiterate as ever, baby. I chose the stealthiest way every time, because I'm gonna... Oh my god, I'm dumpstering. I'm so sorry. Editing me, I'm so sorry for you. Anyhow, I choose the stealthiest way every time because I'm the best around. Nobody's ever gonna take me down. Sneak through the hospital, recover your possessions, some meds, and all that good stuff as you enter the parking lot, hotwire a car, and begin your detour to save that little shit. Sean spends the night driving till he can't, and when he thinks he's got far enough, he tries to sleep in the car in the desert for the night. He won't get any sleep though, what with the racists and such, and given how bad this situation could go, swallow your pride and just do what they tell you. It sucks, but the consequences of not complying would mean severe injuries that we could not sustain in the middle of the desert. Survive, Sean. We have work to do. The next day, we've run out of gas and are just hitchhiking down a long and lonesome road. All of a sudden, the shiny truck on the side of the road. The trucker asks us if we need a ride, and you can either hit your destination 3 times faster or go get there on the verge of death. So catch a ride to that cult compound! This kindly trucker gives you a sandwich and some water and even lets you take a nap while he takes you there. And when you get there, you're ready to take on the world. Enter the church and see that Danny Boy is under the control of the evil-ass reverend, and he won't come back to you. They treat me like a filthy sinner and kick me to the curb, threatening to kill me on sight if I dare to show my face around here again. Well, shit. There really isn't much we can do about that, so I guess it's time to make our final choice. Carry on or die trying to save a little shithead who has caused us nothing but trouble, 1991. I chose to carry on, because there are some battles you just can't win. Sean begins his long solo journey to Mexico, and we watch as he walks off into the sunset. And I'm lying directly to your face, none of this actually happens in the game. What does happen is that Sean finds someone very interesting, and it's none other than his mother Karen. She knows she can't repair the damage she's done to Sean, but she sure as hell can help him get his brother back. However, we're not exactly prepared to go fight this evil-ass cult head-on yet, so let's recover and repair. Karen goes out to buy some food, bandages, and all that stuff you could really use right now, and thus you're in a hotel room left to try and work your shit out. However, that'll have to wait for now, so take a shower, you damn heathen, clean up, change clothes, and rest. Then Karen comes back and you talk about why she left you all those years ago, amongst other less interesting things to do with the plot. Work out your differences, bum a ciggy from mom, and bond. Sean calls Jacob to tell him that he's in town and they plan to meet tomorrow to get Danny Boy free from this hell site and to help get Jacob's little sister to a hospital because she's really sick. Tomorrow comes today or whatever the hell the gorillas were on about, and we have got a mission. Steal some important documents and money from the cult leader's house. Then all the other steps that will be revealed in due time. First, Sean and Jacob steal the files. Jacob wastes my goddamn time by trauma dumping about being sent to a conversion camp or something, and it's not important at all, because it just means the altar boy is going to be able to enter the house and we've got to hide or die. Thankfully, Karen is an arsonist at heart because she sets a church on fire. In the midst of the chaos, it's time to go rescue Danny Boy and get the hell out of Dodge. Enter the main church and approach the altar, only for that altar cup to just wreck your shit. Sean persists and he keeps talking and pleading with Danny Boy to snap out of it and run back to his brother. The beatings get worse and worse, but Sean doesn't give up, because he's willing to die to save his brother, as evident when the altar boy puts his gun against Sean's head, and Sean tells him to pull the trigger, just go shoot him, nail him to the cross and let him be reborn. Sorry, this isn't Far Cry 3, so he doesn't say any of that, but he does tell that altar boy to blow his brains out, and Danny Boy snaps back to reality, defies gravity, and launches that altar bitch across the room to save his brother. The church is burning down rapidly at this point, and against all logic, the cult leader is standing in the doorway trying to prevent us from leaving. Have Danny Boy simply remove her from the equation, non-lethally of course, and walk out into the sunshine. Regroup with Karen, Jacob, and Jacob's sister, split the cash so Jacob can pay his sister's medical bills, and go your separate ways, having successfully sieged Waco in one day. Time has passed and the boys are now with Karen in Arizona on a little commune far away from police jurisdiction. The fellas slept outside under the stars and life has been pretty good for now, but you know what? We're only like an hour away from the border and I'm starting to think it's time to go home soon. Oh hey, that's what Sean is thinking too, and tonight is our last night in the States. We've got a lantern thing tonight in one of the last calm moments of the game before we need to leave. The next day, we're off to finish the job, and the people have some parting gifts for the boys, including a very special cameo. That's right, we have the man who sold the world himself, Punished David Madsen. I say punished because after the events of Life is Strange, he and Joyce got divorced! And here, he's here to give the fellas a police radio so they can escape the law. We get a car, we can say our goodbyes to everyone, give Mom a hug, and head off into the great wide open. On the drive, the boys talk about what life is gonna be like once they finally hit Puerto Lobos. We're about 6 months post-Seattle, and now we're finally at the wall. Break through, and we're finally free. 6 months of pain, finally over. But as we break through the wall and head back to the car to keep going, some redneck bastards shoot Danny in the arm and we get busted by Border Patrol all in one foul swoop. So no one wins and we've actually got to do one last escape before we can actually get out of here. In the detention center, Sean and Danny are separated once more with Sean in police questioning sesh that just stands to waste my goddamn time. I'm not here because I want to be. I'm here because it's my job as a critic to take another look at things every once in a while. Anyways, back on track, Danny Boy eventually causes some kind of trouble and we're back on the run. Free an innocent family from the Border Patrol holding cells, leave those scumbag vigilantes to rot in hell, and steal a car to make our way to the actual border. We're finally at the border. This is it. End of the line. The boys are in a standoff against the FBI, and Danny Boy wants you to tell him all about how the story of the Wolf brothers ends. Sean tells him that he's proud of the little shithead and they'll always be together no matter how this story ends. And now it all comes down to us being here, surrounded by the cops in a massive standoff. Sean is presented with two choices for how the story ends. Gun it through the barricade, or turn yourself in. Yeah, I chose to gun it through the border, told Danny Boy, and because I raised him right, he decides that he's gonna stay and turn himself into the cops like a dumbass. But he won't try and stop you. In fact, he clears a path for you to escape first, then jumps out of a moving vehicle. Sean keeps driving into Mexico, doing the lamest version of that scene in the end of Breaking Bad when Jesse is driving. You know the scene I'm talking about. Anyways, Sean drives off into the sunset crying. We get a flash forward in time and Danny Boy is a bit older and he lives with his grandparents in Oregon and he gets a letter from Mexico addressed to him. In that letter are a bunch of pictures of Mexico, pictures of home, and a picture of Sean and Cassidy, who have finally reunited. But there's something else in that envelope, and it's a bunch of sand from the beach that makes you old. Sorry, I couldn't resist the opportunity to make a joke about the beach that makes you old. No, it's a bunch of sand from that beach Danny Boy always wanted to visit. He starts to gently cry a bit, but he's smiling because the game is over. The credits roll, and thus concludes the story of the Wolf Brothers. After a long and rocky journey, it's finally done. A game that's 3 episodes of endless suffering mixed with 2 solid episodes, which is not a successful margin, believe you me. Now that the journey is all said and done, let's look at the friends and enemies we made along the way and how they're absolutely not the real treasure. To start, we're going to ignore the brothers for now, as they'll get their own section later on. And so let's look at my least favorite characters first. And, well, my second least favorite first, because we all know that the little shit is my least favorite character here. Finn is an enigma of a character for me. On one hand, he's charming and fun enough to be around, but on the other hand, he's the worst person imaginable, as shown in Episode 3's robbery sequence. As a character, I really don't care about him. But I do care a lot about the implications the game makes in relation to him and Sean's potential romance. I just find it really weird and off-putting and, dare I say, strange, that you can only be gay if you're doing a low morality run, because you can only romance Finn if you agree to his plan. I'm not the only one who finds this weird, right? It's weird that for a game as inclusive and diverse as this one, the only way to be gay in this game is to do crimes. It just really doesn't sit well with me. Anyhows, let's follow him up with a random-ass side character that's one of my absolute favorites from this game, Brody. He's barely in the game and I love him. Seriously, he just does one thing in the story and then dips from existence. Somehow he's one of the most memorable things in the game. Like, I almost enjoy this travel blogging Seth Rogen looking ass guy a lot more than I enjoy the rest of this game, which really says a lot about this game's overall quality. He gets one of those rare, mildly enjoyable scenes from the first 3/5 of the game, and that scene is, of course, the Arcadia Bay piss stop. I'm a sucker for the original Life is Strange. I mean, it's in my top 5 favorite games of all time for sure, and I almost always appreciate a trip down to Arcadia Bay, excluding Before the Storm's existence anyway. So here I welcome it, because it doesn't overstay its welcome. Speaking of bringing back shit from the first game, Punished Madsen is another one of my favorite characters here. But I also have nothing to say that I haven't already said before. He's just really here for redemption, and that's nice and cool and all, and I appreciate it, but there's not much substance to talk about him here anymore. Moving right along, let's look at the parents. Mom is another character that's here for redemption. She wants to make things right even though she really can't do it enough justice. I appreciate what they went for here, I really do, but it feels like it could have been more. Like, on a long enough timeline, Sean would actually learn to come close to forgiving her for abandoning him and Dad, but that's a problem for a different narrative to solve. Dad, on the other hand, was perfectly executed, and that's a terrible choice of words, but I'm committing to the bit. I will give the writers of this game a lot of shit for how bad most of this is, but they managed to make Dad the most likable character in such little time that it's genuinely incredible. And honestly, compared to the rest of this game, it feels like the opening segment with Dad was written by a completely different team. Like, the team that went on to write True Colors wrote it, and then weren't allowed to keep working on it. That said, Dad is objectively one of the best characters here, but he's not my absolute favorite. My absolute favorite would be Cassidy. In all honesty, Cassidy is a great character, and while I hate her design, I will die on the hill that she's got one of the best kiss the girl moments in the series. As a character, I really like her voice. The accent and little lisp or southern drawl or whatever it is really cute and endearing. She's caring and warm and is easily the most pleasant character here. All of her mannerisms are great, and I like the songs that she gets to do. I really do. In the context of the game, she's the most reasonable of the commune people, standing up to Finn's dumbass plan when no one else really wants to, not being afraid to tell people off, and all of that good stuff. I do love her relationship with Sean a lot, and from the little moments like the sketch in Chapter 3 or picking up the guitar pick in Chapter 2 to bigger scenes like the tattoo and the rest of the Kiss the Girl moment. The times she gets to do stuff in this game are some of the highlights for what is otherwise a miserable slog. Now, I am contractually obligated to talk about the music in a Life is Strange game, and this one is particularly interesting in that department, because unlike the previous entries in the series, this game's soundtrack has some bigger budget hits to it. The fact that Chapter 3 starts with a needle drop of On Melancholy Hill by Gorillaz is a pretty big step up in the music department, you know? Long gone are the days of To All of You in Spanish Sahara, because we're getting big budget music! And I don't know how to feel about it here. You know, call me basic, but my favorite Gorillaz song is On Melancholy Hill, and my favorite Gorillaz album is Plastic Beach. And ordinarily, I'd be thrilled to hear that song be played in something, but I don't love it in this game. Now, this may be from a lingering memory of my first playthrough of the game, and to set the stage, the first time I ever played Life is Strange 2 all the way through, I finished episode 2 and was pretty mad about how I felt like most of the chapter was wasting my time. I then started up episode 3 and was immediately met with an unskippable recap for the section I just played, and I was pretty livid about it at the time. So, I was already mad and unhappy while playing this game. And then hearing a song I really like in a dumpster fire of a game just set something off in me. And that's the thing, I shouldn't be mad at a needle drop for a good song. I think if they had maybe played it in a different context or setting, it'd be alright, but it's definitely wasted on a pointless flashback scene that does nothing but introduce a kind of meaningless character thing in the form of the Watch. Then there's DANCE by Justice, which is beyond out of place in this series. I can understand using some Gorillaz music because it has more of an indie-ish vibe to it, but this is an electronic song. Don't get me wrong, I like it, but this doesn't belong here, you know? It legitimately comes out of nowhere, and while it's used in a fun sequence, it's nonsense. This whole series is built on the back of alternative and indie music, and bringing electronic in is just bizarre. But what isn't bizarre are actually what actually set a precedent for the games going forward, and that is the songs that Cassidy covers during the game. The first song is I Found a Way by a band called First Aid Kit in episode 2, and I'm Willing by Ben Lee in episode 3 during the campfire sequence, both of which are appropriately indie and are well done, and I'm convinced that this set the precedent for True Colors to have Alex sing twice throughout the game. And it's a really great choice in all honesty. I really like having more diegetic music in these games, and I think it's a great way to implement the music, when done well. I have to specify that it must be done well, because otherwise it's just kind of weird and annoying, like my issues with the whole On Melancholy Hill incident. To wrap this segment up, I do have to talk about the musical callback to the original game. I am of course talking about the usage of the ambient theme Max and Chloe, which I use in some of these videos even, but it's most notably used in this when in the original when Max sits and contemplates throughout the game, or most famously during the ending You Should Never Pick, because Spanish Sahara just goes so much harder, but also it's the better ending because abusers aren't worth sacrificing a whole town over. Here, it's used a couple of times, and it generally makes sense when it's used, and I have to say I'm mildly proud of them for not doing that thing that movie sequels and reboots started doing around this time, and have the slow piano version of the theme. Think like Ghostbusters 2016 having the slow and sad piano version of the Ghostbusters theme. I mean, why did any executive think that was a good idea? Sorry. Now, imagine that in a video game, and I'll see myself out. Here we are, Sean and Danny Boy. Oh boy, where do I start with these two? I think I'm going to start with Sean because I don't want to be mad yet, and I'm sure you've already gathered my thoughts on the little shit. But anyways, I'll say that Sean kinda got the short end of the stick among all the Life is Strange protagonists, which is to say he was never going to be on the same level as Max, and Alex was just in the better game overall, which leaves Sean in a distant third place, and Chloe in the forgotten realm of last place. Sure, you could say that there are 6 playable protagonists in the series, but that would mean you're counting the adventures of Captain Spirit and Wavelengths as anything other than additional content. And I don't think that Captain Alex or Steph have enough game in their respective demo/DLC to count, so the number stays at 4 for now. Anyhow, back on track, Sean deserved a better game, because he had potential to be a good protagonist if the narrative was strong. Alas, this narrative was not strong. The thing is, I like Sean perfectly fine as a protagonist. I like the dynamic and arc they were going for in theory. In theory, Sean was going to be like Nani from Lilo and Stitch, the older sibling thrust into the position of being the sole parent to their younger sibling after the sudden and tragic death of their parents. In reality, Sean never truly got to be that vision because the game didn't really care. Let me explain. Sean had the chance to show the dichotomy he's in as Daniel's now sole caregiver and brother, but they never had enough in the game outside of the first episode where the two were on their own. Starting around 1/3 into episode 2, when they arrive at their grandparents, they're never actually shown to be alone again. In episode 3, they're with the Tremagurns. In episode 5, they have Mom in her settlement. And in episode 4, they're only on screen together in 2 scenes, and they're never the only ones in that scene. Do you see why this immediately shuts down any chance of this plot point actually happening? From the real start of episode 1, i.e. post-dad sequence onward, it establishes that Sean is now going to have to balance out his new responsibilities of being Danny's caregiver while also dealing with his own shit. And this would have been an incredibly interesting narrative, but it gets sent to the Shadow Realm like any good idea this game could have had. But hey, let's just look at the character as is and what they did well. The one scene of character stuff that I legitimately like is in episode 3 with Cassidy's Kiss the Girl moment. This moment is genuinely one of the best in the whole series, and it's a shame that it's surrounded on both sides by dog shit. But anyways, this moment does a lot of really good character stuff because it's one of the only times that Sean gets to be a teen, and sure, this is the longest Kiss the Girl moment in the series, and each part works. The most interesting thing this game does is a small detail that Sean is all mopey about a poor first performance, and while I talked about it earlier, it's worth mentioning that they don't make a joke out of it, and I'm so proud of their restraint, because I know it took a lot of effort not to use the best 15 seconds of your life gag. Instead, the fact that she's so supportive and caring really subverts your expectation, and props to them for not taking the low-hanging fruit. Now, this may be because of Cassidy being the best character in this game, but that's neither here nor there. None of this matters now, because it's time to talk about the bastard spawn of Satan himself, Daniel. I cannot understate how much I hate this child, because 99% of the plot happens because this little shithead won't listen to Sean. Like, if Danny Boy didn't become an incel the moment Sean showed an interest in Cassidy, he wouldn't have gone to try and rob not Gus Fring, because he would have understood that it was a terrible idea. But no, this headstrong dipshit has to go and ruin everything. And I know hindsight is 20/20 and all that, but you don't need hindsight to understand that robbing a drug manufacturer is not a good idea. And I get that they needed the plot to happen, but this feels like they wrote themselves into a corner where they had the idea for the weed farm and the robbery conclusion first, and then built the chapter around that, not realizing that the players may not actually want to go along with the robbery. The point is, it feels like a convenience on the writer's part. This doesn't feel like a choice Danny Boy would have reasonably made, especially if you've raised him to be moral. It's contradictory and stupid, and then he gets to go off scot-free from that bullshit while Sean loses an eye and everyone else, at the very least, is injured. And I already hear some people saying, but he's a child, he doesn't know any better, he's traumatized and lost and scared, and they need to shut up and listen. There is no reasonable explanation for this shit. No child, no matter how traumatized and screwed up they are mentally, is going to put themselves through more danger than necessary. Not even one with telekinesis. There's like 4, technically 7, but that's not important, endings here, and they're all bad in some regard. See, there's 2 categories for what the game uses to determine endings, and they're all related to the stats of the little shit. That's right, the real determining factor for what ending you get is whether or not that little shithead has high morality, high brotherhood, low morality, or low brotherhood. To save you the effort, there is no ending where Sean and Danny Boy reach Mexico as good people. If you raised Danny right, having a high morality and pretty high brotherhood, you're going to get one of 2 endings: parting ways or redemption. Parting Ways, or as it should be named, Separate Ways, is the one I stated in the story section, as it's the one I usually get. And there's 3 versions of this ending. Sean alone, with Cassidy, or with Finn, but any way you go, Danny Boy ain't making it to heaven. Redemption is the lame-ass goody two-shoes ending where both brothers turn themselves in like idiots, Sean goes to prison, Danny is subjected to a lifetime of government surveillance, and the actual ending has the two seeing each other for the first time after Sean gets out of jail, and I don't care. On the evil side of things, there's two endings for you, Blood Brothers and Lone Wolf. So Blood Bros is the only one where they both make it to Mexico. And all it took was being 100% on board with murdering everyone who gets in your way. I mean, Jesus wept! The ending itself features the boys killing rival gang members. But I guess they both made it to Puerto Lobos this time. The same cannot be said for the funniest ending, Lone Wolf. I call it the funniest because it means Sean is finally like, you know what, maybe crime isn't so good, and he's gonna turn himself in, only for Danny Boy to be like, no, and just force drive the car across the border as the FBI opens fire. They seemingly make it into Mexico, only for it to be revealed that Sean took a shotgun blast to the chest, which means Danny Boy is alone in Mexico. And he's gonna go down the only road he's ever known. It's crime time, bitch! And it's really funny to me. Maybe because it's the dumbest option you could possibly make if you've gone down the evil route, or maybe it's just a genuinely stupid choice in every capacity. The world may never know. Point being, the fact that this game fumbled the most fundamental aspect of the story is brutal. The fact there is no good ending sucks a lot, and you can argue that this game's predecessors didn't have a good ending either, except they did. Letting Chloe live is obviously the bad ending, and there's always a downside in whatever Before the Storm ending you choose. And this game is no exception to there always being a downside no matter what you do. It really undermines their point by having no ending where the boys reach their destination while also being good people. It's awful, and you can blame this all to one single character, Danny. Yes, everything wrong in this game can be blamed on the little shit. And no, I'm not kidding. Daniel just is a bad character, and I feel obligated to say that it's not the fault of the actor that this character sucks. They did their best with what was given to them, and that's all I can ask. Danny Boy is a victim of that old bastard bad writing. That, and it's a hard character type to work with in the first place. And he gets to be the one with superpowers. What a sick joke! Seriously though, having an NPC be the one with the powers is worse than not having powers in this type of game, because it's half of what makes this shit interesting. The original LIS without time travel would suck, True Colors without the emotional clairvoyance would be lame, and Before the Storm would be dog shit even if it had powers. But none of this means anything, because the root of the problem is still the child. That, and there's no traditional good ending. Which means you did all of this for basically nothing. You endured the little shit's nonsense and crap for a really long time, only for your payouts to be either crime time, incarceration, death, or freedom. I suppose all the endings are in fact good endings because you're finally free of the little shit. But what do I know? A lot, actually. I mean, all of this game's later plot points happen because it's directly Daniel's fault. If he had listened, we wouldn't have gotten separated at the end of episode 3. Nobody would have been injured. We could have gone on just fine. But no, this little shithead has to go off and be a thoughtless dickbag. And also, he's the only character with powers in the series that has no real drawbacks to him. Max's body gets pretty jacked up from abusing her powers constantly, and Alex's powers weren't controllable for so long that it literally ruined most of her life. But Danny? Oh, he just gets a little winded, that's all. He just gets a little sweepy and tired if he does something that requires more intensive power use. Like, he faces no drawbacks whatsoever, and that sucks. I mean, this game, especially given how much it wants to be the original game, you'd expect there to be a substantial downside to continuous use of his telekinesis. But there isn't. It's such a dropped ball, and sure, this is a bit nitpicky, but come on, this is inexcusable. Moving on from the power shenanigans, I have to say that Danny Boy is such a dick, because he never truly grasped that his brother always takes the fall for him. Like, Sean gets his shit rocked so many times, all for someone who couldn't care less. Shockingly, the little shit is never really in danger, and quite frankly, he is the danger. But not in a Walter White kind of way, more of a I am a danger to myself and others kind of way. He's also just lame as shit, so there's that. question I'm sure you're all asking at this point is, where does this game fall in the Life is Strange game tier list? And of the 4 currently released games, this is the only one in B tier. On revisit, it's not the worst thing ever made, and it's still leagues better than Before the Storm. I mean, there isn't much at the same caliber of trash as Before the Storm. Like, even Starfield and Redfall are better if I had to guess. Not that I played either of those, but I have because I have better things to do, but I do feel confident in making that assertion. Anyways, I want to use this section to say that I definitely treated this game a little too harshly the first time around. It's not the worst thing ever, but it's far from good, but also far from absolute trash. This game truly could best be described as the forgotten middle child of the series. Think about it like this. Its oldest sibling is the most successful, its youngest sibling is the most talked about because it's that good, and its second oldest sibling is the lost cause overdosing on fentanyl in a Love's truck stop bathroom off of I-65. But this game? No one cares. No one ever actually talks about it. I mean, I refer to and reference the original game in true colors all the time, but rarely do I ever draw comparisons to this game, and honestly it's even rarer for this game to cross my mind. It's just not good by any metric, but by those same metrics, it's not bad, which leaves this game in a limbo state of mediocrity. It really is the forgotten middle child of the series. That's the best I can say about it. I will concede on some points I raised in my original essay on this game. Like, I kinda missed the mark on Cassidy. First off, she's the best character here by a mile in every regard, even if her design is kinda awful. I definitely didn't give Sean enough credit for being a solid protagonist that deserved a better game to be in, and I think it being the last of the original LIS essays didn't do it any favors. And as such, it got plenty of crap tacked onto it, like the series ranking and obligatory section comparing it to Before the Storm. It definitely didn't need those last 2 segments, but I do think it was a necessary addition to wrap up that original essay. Kind of pointless, but worth it in the long run. And it just goes to show how much of the forgotten middle child this game is. It got co-opted for other things. So, to give you some context about when I'm writing this, it's been around a few weeks since Life is Strange Double Exposure got announced, and I, as of writing this segment on 7/5/24, am cautiously optimistic about that game, especially since it features the return of one of my favorite protagonists in any game ever, Max. I'm really happy to see her come back, especially in a narrative that seemingly has no real mention of the bane of my existence, Chloe. More on topic though, I always knew I was in the minority of LIS fans, considering I'm not a 15 to 28-year-old lesbian, but apparently I'm delusional in multiple ways that I'm saving most of for my essay on Double Exposure, because you bet your ass I'm going to talk about it as soon as humanly possible, but I digress. What I want to talk about here is something that I apparently didn't get the memo on, and that's what the quote-unquote LIS fanbase considers to be the ranking of the games. And it's just as monumentally stupid as you'd imagine. For some brief context to the rant I'm about to go on, following the announcement of the new game, I've seen an increase in online discourse on the series, and this is something I usually avoid like the plague. However, sometimes you take the bait and observe what the fans have to say. And the post that set me off was on the Metacritic scores, and the comments on said post just made me sad. You shouldn't trust Metacritic user scores ever, but with this series, you really see the division between people who are even mildly intelligent and those who are a fan of Chloe. The user scores, in order of highest to lowest, go as follows. Life is Strange with an 8.6, Before the Storm, 8.0, True Colors, 7.0, and Life is Strange 2, 6.5. Now, I need you to keep in mind that these are Metacritic user scores, and Metacritic users aren't people. But back on topic with the post that set me off. It starts pretty reasonably, with many saying that the original game is the best one, and I get that. I respect that. It's my personal favorite game in the series, because of a myriad of reasons I've already discussed in my essays on that game. Then things get a little silly. See, if you ask me, as someone who's pretty damn knowledgeable on the series, having analyzed each game multiple times very thoroughly, you'd know that objectively True Colors is the best game in the series, closely followed by the original. Then in a very distant third place you have this game, and an even more distant last place you have Before the Storm. However, you ask any fan of the series online, and they'd tell you that apparently True Colors is an affront to God and is the worst game in the series. Now, if you're reading this, you're probably smarter than the average Chronically Online LIS fan, which means you know just how wrong that opinion is. None of this is to discredit anyone who genuinely doesn't like that game. I can get that, but to say that True Colors is the worst in the series is just blatantly wrong. And the hits just keep on coming! Because you know what game a lot of people online then say is the best one? Life is Strange 2. I don't get why anyone would really be of that opinion, in all honesty. Spoilers, but this game is the most middle-of-the-road game in the series. It's an average to below-average experience that never quite feels as torturous as Before the Storm, but definitely drags on way too long and has a myriad of issues, as we've already discussed. And, I can generally see a case for why a specific game in a franchise is someone's favorite, and I'm no stranger to having my favorites in a series be the more unpopular ones. As a completionist, I like Psychonauts 2 more than Psychonauts, because I wouldn't wish the pain of unlocking I Love Punching on anyone. My favorite Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy 15. I liked Furiosa more than I liked Fury Road. And you get it now? Right? There's a rationale behind all of those opinions, and I could articulate why, but there's no explanation for why Life is Strange 2 could be your favorite game in this series outside of personal connections. The great personal connections dilemma is something that is ingrained in criticism of all forms. If you resonate with something on a personal level, it's gonna be something you'll likely think more highly of than something you don't vibe with. That's essentially why the original Life is Strange is my favorite in the series. It holds a lot of personal meaning to me. But I can set that aside and look at it more objectively, which is why I say that True Colors is the best in the series. Objectively looking at LIS2, you'll see the thousands upon thousands of issues this game has in every department. And sure, underneath all the shit and half-baked ideas lies the occasional glimmer of a good one, but there's not enough to truly warrant saying this is the best one. You can say it's your favorite and be correct, but to do so, but to say it's the best is foolish at best and criminally negligible at worst. Then there's perhaps an opinion more criminal than saying LIS2 is the best one, and that's believing that Before the Storm is a good game, which apparently people do, and according to those heathens online, it's one of the best. I cannot understate how bad it is. And people who try and defend it are blind to the fact that it genuinely sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before. But apparently I'm delusional and just don't get it. What do people see in that game? I guess we'll never know, and I'm kinda glad that we'll never know. However, if you really want to check out how bad and really want to know how bad that game is, please check out my essay and video on that game, and the other games in this series as well. I'd really appreciate it, Life is Strange 2 is really an enigma in the franchise. I stand by my original assessment that this game is 3/5 terrible and 2/5 what an LIS game should be, and yes, this is a damn shame because it doesn't deserve to be this awful. But on that same token, it's not the worst thing ever. There are some good elements in here, and upon further inspection, there are glimmers of hope for what could have been a better game. But the final question I have to ask you is, do I stand by my original rating of the game? Is this still a 3 out of 10 game? And the answer, shockingly, is no. And in fact, the score is actually going to go up a smidge to a 4 out of 10. I really think that it earned it on further inspection. There's enough good that it warrants a 4, but not enough to put it at the dead center mark to say that this game is a perfectly mediocre one. And the thing is, if the pacing was not as ungodly slow as it is, it wouldn't be the most unbearable experience in the world. Don't get me wrong, it still wouldn't be good, but at least it would be easier to endure the other shit I have to go through. However, this game is what it is, and I can't change that. So remember, my name is A Leg of Glazed Ham, and thank you for watching my second look at Life is Strange 2. It always means a lot. Thanks again, and good night.